Good evening, everyone. Here we are again on one of our lovely lives, and I'm joined tonight by Lucy Paine from Always Possible. Hello, Lucy. Is she still there?
Good
Yes, she is.
evening. And we've only can see the cat at the moment. I can
Oh,
still see the cat. I
yes.
can't see the dog at the moment. We've been having pet chat before we went live, haven't we?
Here's Teddy.
Oh, there we
So
go. Hey, Teddy.
in our live audience this evening, we have my work colleagues, because we're going to be talking about outsourcing. So I outsource all cuddles to Ted, and I outsource all tracking of any outside creatures to Coco the cat. Here she comes. She'll come over and take her instructions right now. And then she's just checking. She does guarding. She's a guard cat. So she's out there skirting the periphery, making sure that she's keeping us all. See, look, she's guarding me.
As she's posing.
Yeah, I've outsourced my guarding. So yes, so tonight we are joined by several of the members of the Pure team. the
See,
fluffy ones.
my assistant's asleep in front of the fire. My house rabbit. I'm afraid we've been chop chumped by a nice warm bum by the fire.
Oh,
so
I would quite like it. Hello, yes. Just checking in. So tonight we're going to talk about how to grow your art business, or any business really, and when you need to outsource. And before we start, I just want to say that, because Lucy and I were just chatting about this before we came on live, is that all of these lives we do to serve the audience. We don't do them to get business for ourselves or to drive any kind of income stream. Lucy doesn't want anything from you. She's just here to share her experience and empower you. That's the purpose of these. And they're all on our live. They're put up on our Pure Live YouTube channel, and they're also live streamed into our Facebook. So anyone who's watching us on Facebook, hello, and into the Hungry Artist. And these are really there to give you a free resource that you can use when you want to grow your business and you need to learn some more from experts. And Lucy really is an expert, and she's helped Pure grow itself. So, I really do trust and rely on Lucy and what she has to say. So, as I say, tonight we're talking about how do you grow your art business by outsourcing either to a platform, an app, a tech, or to a human being. So when do you know? When's the first kind of moment, the signal you think, I need to get some more help here? Have you seen this in your working life? Have you seen some typical moments?
I think every founder needs support, because the key thing is you can't do everything. And we talked about this last time we had a great chat. You start your business and you immediately start getting drawn into all the things which aren't the best use of your time, whether that's bookkeeping or things that you're really uncomfortable with, which could be sales, couldn't it? Or social media. To run a business has so many different elements to it, most of which are not the best use of your time, aren't the best use of your skill set, or you could be just absolutely plain terrible at it. And so you have to, I think, even almost before you start, map out what you must do immediately and what you should outsource immediately. I immediately got rid of bookkeeping, to be really honest, because it might be a cost of £100 a month for an accountant, but if that takes me a day, I'm going to back myself to make that money. So I think you've really got to be honest with yourself right at the very beginning of what you should and shouldn't be doing and what you might need to do for a certain time. But I imagine most people who are on this call didn't ever really want to be an accountant. Apologies to the accountants, but for most of us, that's not the way our brain works. So just immediately get rid of those things. And then as you grow and as you evolve, what does your stretch look like? And I do think sales ends up being that, and social media and marketing, especially if you're creative, you want to keep being creative. I work with a lot of tech businesses, and the tech founders want to be creating. They want to be busy coding, reimagining the metaverse, whatever it may be. They don't
it's
want
a very big word. Now there's a thing.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But they are quite rubbish at selling what they do. They're not their own ambassadors, their own salespeople. But I think it's breaking it into chunks, isn't it? What we talked about before we went live was it's not all or nothing, because people think I have to hire a whole person.
Yeah.
And hiring is so flexible right now. So if you can break down be honest on your timekeeping and how long these things take you, and on what you really want to focus on, and what your
Mhm.
business needs you to be doing. We're not talking about hiring somebody for a couple of days a week potentially, but just sort of gently having a plan for bringing those resources in. And it can be pretty scary. That's the other problem. If you think it's all or nothing, if you've been a sole trader for any amount of time, that first hire or first collaboration feels like a dilution of your own brand.
Mm.
But
Mm.
how do you approach this when you're mentoring somebody and you know they're totally overwhelmed? How do you pick apart where to start with?
So I think that's a very good point, is the overwhelm is a very good point to think, okay, you don't want to get into overwhelm in the first place. You want to try and
Mm,
spot it before you reach overwhelm. If I talk from my own personal perspective, um, yes, you need to be strategic. So it's really important to get complete clarity on what you want to do. What is your thing? What's your passion, your thing? And then understand your goals. Now, this is a really big one, because I think creatives really struggle with this goal setting thing. They're like, well, how do I set a goal? And I don't know where I want to be in 5 years and 10 years, etc. So I do quite a lot of visioning with them. And that's how we kind of work out
mm,
which bits that they're passionate about and good at, and which bits they
yeah.
could outsource. So I do think goal setting is a really important thing, and strategic thinking. And again, that's a really difficult thing for people to kind of get their head around. Not everybody thinks strategically, do they? It depends on
No.
your
But
personality type.
it's good to focus, though, as you said, on what you really want to do and what you really don't want to do. And
Mm,
you can have, I know one organization who has a 10-year goal and a 5-year and a 3-year and a 1-year, and then he's broken it into months. Because
mm,
especially over the last 2 years, the world keeps on curveballing, doesn't it? So
mm,
don't set yourself a goal that becomes a stick that you can never achieve. It
mm,
could be, and as you say, your strategy for 2022 could be 3 shows, 3 exhibitions,
mm,
or 10 new pieces, or whatever 10 commissions, whatever it needs to be. Make it manageable, make it achievable, make it motivational, because again,
mm,
people take strategy is a weird word, isn't it? It can really
mm.
alienate people from a creative process. But it's just putting some plans in there to make sure you have a focus.
You need a plan, no matter what anyone
Mm,
says, no matter how much you really hate the word plan. And sometimes the word plan triggers, especially creatives. It's a real trigger word for creatives. But you do need some sort of plan. And you also, another trigger word for creatives is money. You actually do need to
mm,
know how much money you could make. You need to run the cash flow.
yep,
You really do need to run the cash flow, because that will that's motivation in itself. Because you'll go, oh, I need to outsource. Say, I really just, for me, the first thing I wanted to outsource was social media. Get that social media off. I'm not afraid of money, and I quite like. I'm worked in a bank, so money doesn't worry me. So running my own accounts and everything has never been a big issue for me. So I was happy to keep the accounts thing. I wanted the social media thing off my agenda. So I had to run
yep,
the numbers to work out how much I could afford. If I did a certain amount of work, how much could I afford to pay someone? And then I had to find the person. And that's the next step, isn't it? I had to find the tech, and I had to find the person. So I found a bit of tech like Linktree, which helped,
mm,
and
yep,
Eventbrite, which helped. But all of these things you have to pay for.
yep.
And then I wanted to find a person.
And that's
That's when
hard
it
with
all
social
got a little
media.
bit.
Well, they're looking after your brand, and I think outsourcing social
Mm,
media, I mean, outsourcing finance that's quite easy. It is literally
mm,
transactional, isn't it, for those of us
mm,
who don't like it? But for
mm,
social media, you have to understand what your brand, what you are, what you stand for, the language, the tone, because you're going to give it to someone to look after, and they are
mm,
representing the essence of you.
mm.
And done badly, that can destroy a brand.
Yeah.
So finding the right person. Where did you start?
Especially for
Mm,
creatives as well, because their identity is so caught up in their artwork. And having
mm,
someone talk about their artwork on their behalf and put up images about their artwork on their behalf is a really massive thing. Um, So we started with, I just kind of put it out there. I was thinking about outsourcing the social media, and I'm very much someone, I like, trust the universe. I know I need this, and I'll put it out there on mine. And I've got quite a big network, and I'll just
Mm.
listen. And someone was suggested to me, Sophie, as everyone will know, and and I was like, oh, well, I'll give her a go. But first of all, I need to make sure I've got all my branding pack kind of done. So Chris, who is the creative director of Pure, we sat down and we kind of made sure that we had all the brand assets very clear. We had our logo, we had all our colors, we had our font, we had our kind of visual way we like things to look. And we had
Mm.
all that kind of nailed down. And so when we started working with Sophie, it was quite easy because she didn't have to kind of be going, well, will they like it? Won't they
You've
like
got
it?
to give her the tools. You've got to
Yeah.
give them all the tools, because any freelancer is just like anybody you hire full time. That it takes them, I'd say, a good 3 months. Any of us takes a good 3 months to kind of get a head around a new job. If you're a freelancer, it can
Mm,
take a bit longer,
I
and they've
think
got to
that's an
understand. They've got to get to know
interesting,
you.
yeah, that's another
Mm.
interesting thing, because then it was, how do you hire? So do you hire freelance, like on a 0 hours contract effectively, or do you hire someone that you do the whole PAYE and all of that stuff? Now, for most small businesses, solo entrepreneurs, that's a no. They're not going to do the
Mm.
whole PAYE and all of that stuff. And for us, equally, we didn't want someone full time. I wanted a certain number of hours. I wanted her to
Mm.
do, a couple of hours a day on social media. I didn't want her to be a full time member of staff. And equally, she didn't want that because she's a creative and she wanted to be doing her own thing. So we thought about a contract, and the contract
Yep.
was very much in that remit of that non NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, that what we tell her stays private, and that
Yep.
she wouldn't go and work for a competitor either while she was working with us or within a certain number of years after she'd worked with us. So that's another thing, isn't it? Contracts, once you start working with a freelance, because they are going to be working with lots of different people.
Yes. And but again, those sort of contracts, that's something you could Google, but you shouldn't. That is something worth spending money on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, everyone thinks everything is on Google. It is, but if you're going to do these things, you should do it right. Because if you do it once, it means you have a lovely contract which you can use again. But you should
Yeah.
still check each time you do it, because the law does change.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of having a retainer with somebody rather than a 0 hours, so the relationship
Yeah.
feels very fair, very balanced. Because you hope if it goes well, it could expand. Think long term. Think positive. Think whatever the goals are, and it builds um, a true relationship with somebody, which is what you want if you're going to be collaborating with them long term. How long have you had your team?
So, in the early days, I had, I know, and they're still with me. So, in the early days, I had Hildegarden and Shelley, Vincent and Louisa, and Mary Beanie, and they've been with me, and they are still with me forever. And they are very much on an event by event basis how we work, and we work out between us what's a fair pay based on the event that we're delivering. And that's how we always organised it, as we were growing the business, and we grew it together. But then in the last like 3 or 4 years, as it's changed, Chris is on a number of hours. So she's on an hours basis, and we've got a contract. And so Sophie has now been
Mm.
replaced by Caitlin, because Sophie went on and got a full-time job. So it was very amicable. But
All good. Yeah.
as you said, and then I've got Tanya, who's been with me on and off for quite a few years as well, and she does all the member liaison. All of these people are creatives as well. So for me, it was very important to employ creatives. That was
Mm.
part of my ethos, was to employ people who are already, so they would have an empathy with our clients and understand how their personalities worked and their minds worked, and would be nice, kind, because they'd understand,
And they'd also understand the way you have to work. As you said, with events, things ebbing and flowing in that
Mm,
fluidity. If you
mm,
build a trusted, collaborative relationship, they're with you for the ebbs and flows, and it gave them
mm,
time. They might have had a lovely big project with you, and then had some time where they could then use to develop their own creative business. And
mm,
it becomes quite organic and
yeah.
quite, as you say, a true collaboration rather than just a resource.
Absolutely. I very much like that idea within the creative industries of how I think that's one of the great things, is how we collaborate and how we support each other. And it can ebb and flow. You need me a lot now. Oh, and now you don't need me very much. And that's okay. As I say, with my
Mm.
team, I have fixed hours contracts. So they have a certain number of hours. They have confidence in money going into their bank account every month on the same day. I think that's
Yeah.
really important, that they have confidence that they're going to be paid. And that means I have, and that puts a certain amount of pressure on me. And I can see, therefore, how a creative would feel, because the nature of a creative business is it does ebb and flow. But what I say to my clients is, you can't look at anything oh, this month I've done terribly. You have to look at it over a year, and you should be managing your
Mm.
business over a year's spectrum. So you're going to have peaks of income and then other times when it's going to be low. And that's how you should be viewing your business, not in a month by month how much the income comes in, because otherwise you're going to be stressed out, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, if it's all about whether it's events or whether it's creativity or whether it's sales, however you're feeding that pipeline, there will be curveballs. There will be lots of events. There will be time where you are just battening down the hatches, and maybe in the
Mm,
studio, for example, where you're not actually going to putting out there. And when
mm,
you're hiring and outsourcing these people, I like what you mentioned there, is that some people really do need that retainer. Some
mm,
people would be terrified of the 0 hours contract, and other
mm,
people thrive on it and back themselves. And so when you find the
mm.
right person, work with them and
Yeah.
and make sure you can have a middle ground where they're comfortable and you're comfortable. Because if they're uncomfortable in the 0 hours contracts and they're forever fretting, you'll lose them. They won't do their best job. And if
Mm,
they're the right person, how can you support them going forward? Because you say it's about collaboration, and it's also, if you've got a wonderful person, how could I talk about things like job sharing? You've got a great person,
mm,
you meet somebody else in the industry who could desperately do with somebody just like the person you've got. They're not competitive. How could we work together? Because it's again, the
mm,
power of networks like this is we're all in the same boat. Let's, as you say, empower each other, learn
mm.
from all of our experiences, because we're all going through similar things, and share best practices and great resources and good tools.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be professional and
Mm,
also ethical.
yes, hugely.
So that's that thing about, some people want a 0 hours contract because they don't want the commitment. They
Used
want
well, it's a great tool,
Yeah, they want
isn't
to
it? Yeah,
feel, oh, this month I can't work for you. And
yeah.
that's okay if they're in a role where you can cope with that. If they're in a role where, if they say to you they can't work, you suddenly become completely overwhelmed, that's not working, is it? That's not doable.
No. As 0 hours contracts can be very powerful. I used to, as you know, manage a group of
Mm,
students at Sussex Innovation. And when they're doing their masters, I would have them on a 0 hours contract. I said, there's going to be times when you've got your dissertation, when you've got high workloads, but
mm,
we'd plan it. We knew when those blocks were in. I
mm,
knew when I wouldn't have them. And when they could work, we do extra hours. So as long as it's
mm.
fair to both parties, it's a great tool.
Yeah,
But
but it
it is
has to
about,
be
as you
fair.
say, yes, to both parties.
Mm,
Um, and that's the conversation which we might feel awkward about having at the beginning, is like, what really works best for you?
yeah. Yeah,
Being
because I
terribly
think we've
British, we
been
don't like talking
yeah,
money.
we're terribly British. I think it's really important to have this conversation about 0 hours contracts, because they've got a bad rap. And actually,
Yeah,
I think used properly, they're really good. And it gives
yeah,
people the opportunity to kind of have a say over their working life. But used badly, they can be very bad. They can be brutal and not good for
yeah,
anyone involved in it. They can cause the person who is giving the work a lot of stress and overwhelm, and they can make the other person who's delivering feel very vulnerable. And that's a bad energy.
yeah. It's never going to end well, is it? No, because we know what,
Mm,
no one wants that fear. I mean, looking over the last 2 years, that fear of
mm,
having no income. A lot of us have
mm,
experienced that because of
mm,
lockdown, and that's not that security of just having an honest working relationship. And again, you should be planning your 12 months out, saying, look,
mm,
when have you got workflow coming in? This is what I've got coming in. Let's look at what that 0 hours could look like in the next year,
mm.
as much as you can finger in the air, some of
Mm,
it, isn't it?
mm,
But what you feel happy that you can see coming, we've got these big 3 shows. I'm probably gonna need
mm.
you a couple of blocks of time there.
Yeah,
And just making it, especially when you're small, it sounds exactly like what you did. They're part of your team. It doesn't matter if they're
yeah.
a freelancer or 0 hours, you're gonna treat them as part of your team because
Mm.
their their collaboration and their being on board is so essential to your growth as much as to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's kind of like all falls into that risk management area, doesn't it? It's like when
Mm.
you're running a business, and even if you're a solo entrepreneur, like most artists are solo entrepreneurs, you still have got to manage the risk around everything to do with your business because it is a business. If it's not a hobby, it is a business. If you're relying on earning some money to pay for something, it becomes into a business. And then you've got to think about it strategically and you've got to get over this whole fear of talking about money and actually working out how many people, goodness gracious, this is something that drives me absolutely insane. I'll say, how much are you earning? And they'll, "Oh, yeah, I don't know." And I'll go, okay. And I'll ask them like 3 or 4 questions. Okay, you're earning £7 a day. How does that feel? And they're like,
Yes.
ah, am I? And you're like, no, so that's not working, is it?
Mm.
So how are we going to work that one out? And the minute you get your head around the money, then you're starting to grow a business and you can then start thinking about bringing other people in. But once they become reliant on you, you've got an ethical responsibility. And that's how I feel. I have an ethical responsibility to the people who work for me to make sure I can pay them. So I get up in the morning and I work hard every day because I'm
I
responsible for them.
I spoke to somebody last week who said, "Oh, yes, so, after the tax service, we made £8,000 profit last year." I said, "Fantastic. Did you pay yourself?" "No." "Well, you didn't make any profit then, did you?"
No,
And he was saying,
exactly.
"Well, yeah, but what we do, it was ceramics, so it's quite
Mm,
expensive. So we probably, we sell out every single time, but we don't make much margin." So what's wrong with that sentence? You're not making it this this isn't a business. I
that's
said to
not a
him,
business.
as you no, but I said, and you can work it back. I speak to a lot of people and say, right, work it back as to what you need as an income, what your
Yeah,
baseline to live is. If you need £1,000 a month to pay your rent, feed yourself, keep yourself warm, whatever, buy materials, then that's your base, isn't it?
yeah,
So you can work it backwards because, as you say, it's not running a business, it's not all about world domination and multinational, but you have got a base standard of living and existence you need to cover. So even if
exactly.
you start there with, if I need to make £1,000 a month, how many commissions is that? How many pieces is that? How many shows? Whatever,
Mm,
or how many pieces of ceramics it was with this firm. But yeah, he was so proud of his £8,000 profit when he hadn't paid himself. And I said, well, hey, do you keep a timesheet? So a bit like you were saying about the £7 a day. He said,
yeah,
do you know how many hours have you spent on that £8,000? Because I'm assuming they're probably down to 50p an hour, when you start
yeah,
working it through.
exactly. Exactly. And
That's not
that's
even
what
a hobby, is it?
that's not even that's really not a hobby even.
A
And that's
kid
the
wouldn't work for that. Your son
yeah.
wouldn't work for that.
No. Oh God, don't even ask them. My children won't work for anything under about £12 an hour. They're very they're very thrifty, the lot of them. But that's the thing. And actually that's the moment when you need to hire in either in a tech platform. I know the game changer for me going from survival to a night, decent profit was when I decided to take on a couple of online tech platforms as well, like Coach Vantage that would manage all my diary for me,
Mm.
and Canva.
Oh, I
Canva,
love Canva. Great
Canva.
tool.
Wow, what a difference that made. And that's so Canva is $99 a year. And it's every single penny of that is worth it because everything we do looks professional. And then, so every time you approach the market, we've had an interaction with someone today, and honestly, I said to one of the guys who works with me, I said, I think they think we're BP. I think they think we're one of the 100 blue chips because the way they were, the dialogue was so at that level. I was like, I think they've misunderstood who they're dealing with. It's okay, but because everything looks professional, but that's okay because then when you come to have the money conversation, they trust you, they respect you, and they understand your value. And people have to
Mm.
understand your value in order to pay. And this is so So the same way with artists, if you find that maybe your sales aren't going how you want them to, you need to think about which bit of the chain is broken. And
Yeah.
that's where you
Yeah.
bring in the outsource. So you're like, okay, well, I'm getting the exhibitions. Okay, so the applying for things and my artwork's good, but then I'm not actually managing to convert that into a sale. Why not? Well, maybe I'm just not the best person to be doing the marketing. Maybe I'm not using the opportunities that are given there. I'm not seeing all of the opportunities that have been given me there, and I'm not maximizing it. Who could help me with that? And I know last time we talked about mentors, but actually Sandra's just said in the sidebar there she's taken on a student. I know another one of my clients has taken on a student this week as well. And I think students are great because they come in with a whole new perspective, but you need to get them to sign a contract.
There's a lot of the intern windows are about to open as well. So it's a
Ah.
thing to keep an eye on. A lot of they do internships. There's loads of flavors, isn't there? There's some that over the summer. There's first generation scholars. I think there's some internships coming up in the next couple of months at the university. So you just have to, I probably would keep an eye on your local university just because it's quite nice to meet. Obviously they don't, a lot of these are still are virtual, but I think you have to ring fence quite a defined project for an
Yeah,
intern. They are
I
very
agree.
good at getting things done, but they don't have the experience to understand it. You've got to be very literal and you've got to box it. I think that's the way to approach it with an intern. If you get one that can think about it a little bit more creatively and laterally, fantastic. Most that I've met have not learnt that skill yet.
Yeah, they're too
So give
young,
them some
aren't they?
yeah, they've not got the experience,
Mm,
but also if you give them some nice little boxes and they achieve and deliver, they build in confidence. So if you have them for 8 weeks, make sure the first couple of weeks is mapped out with some nice, simple deliverables. It could be research, it could be, as you say, creating some Canva assets because they'll know how
mm.
to use Canva. I love it so much. It's so it makes us all look like design geniuses, doesn't
It
it?
does. We are a design guru. Even I can make a decent Canva tile.
It makes me so happy and so quickly. Again,
Yeah.
we would have been getting really frustrated in different design packages a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and
crikey.
Canva, yeah,
Trying to drag
oh,
and drop and no,
it was horrible, wasn't
I
it? And then you couldn't
outsourced
save as a
that.
JPEG, and yeah.
That was outsourced.
But again, that's great for a student. The student isn't going to be able to define your brand identity. They're not
No.
going to have that strategy background. But once you'd work with somebody else to do that, but they could do the delivery, they could create the assets, they could create landing pages. They've got that kind of ability potentially. Or you might get an English grad who's great at writing. You
Yeah.
know, pick the background you need for the skill set gap you have. So if you hate doing your profit and loss and your accountants, go and get yourself a maths grad, intern. Think about what you need, but don't expect the media studies interns to really understand social media for business. Another thing people get
Yeah.
wrong. It's just because they all know social media because they're kids, they've been on it since dot. They know social media for themselves and for their friends and for influencers, not you and your business or using it to sell or using it to build those different relationships. So don't fall into the trap, which universities will promote, of students are great at social. They
Yeah.
probably aren't.
Yeah. No, because actually what you need social media to do is to build, as you just said, relationships. Because selling, especially in the luxury end of the market, is all about relationship building. And you will not
Yeah.
sell a single thing to somebody you haven't built some sort of bridge with, some sort of relationship with. But once you've got those relationships, you need someone to maintain them for you. So that's a
Yeah.
great. So when I look at the jobs that I can outsource, I am very much a ring fencer. I give projects to people. So like Tanya is our member liaison, and she does that. That's what she does, and she's brilliant at it. And then Chris, creative, and then Caitlin, social media, and I've just taken on someone else today to do a project with me, to build a project. We started the brainstorming today, and I think when you can ring fence it like that, yeah, you can work out, as I say, what your gaps. It's really important to work out what your gaps are. Not only the things you
Yes.
don't like, but actually the things you're not really good at either.
And things that aren't the best use of your time. That's the thing I always say.
Mailchimp.
Oh yeah.
That's another great one to outsource, because once you've got you must have your brand assets done, and you must know You must have your logo, especially now. I mean, I was saying years ago, I'd say, you don't need a website. What do you need a website for? And you don't need a logo. You don't need any of that nonsense. But COVID changed the world. So especially for artists. So now you do need all of those things. You need a really fully functioning digital website with a good gallery that can be refreshed. You need to have your logo that gives you your identity, that stands you out away from other people. You need to know your colors. You need to know your font. You need to have that brand pack done. Once you've got that, you can outsource anything. You can outsource the mail, newsletters. I was interviewing a girl called Imogen White from Hello Polly, and she does copywriting. And I spoke to her the other day. She said, Lesley, people keep ringing me. Can you take that interview down? I've got so much work I don't know what to do with, because everyone's got outsourced writing. Now that's a great thing to get a student to do, an English student.
English students are gold dust because they're not quite sure what they want to do. I don't think they've realised quite how important their command of the language is. But I loved history students as well, because the way they tell stories. There's some real assets out there, and so go and tap into your local universities and get them to come out and experience. I was going to go back to when we were talking about the branding. That again is something you do need to get a third party involved in, though.
Definitely.
Because the branding bit, but also the gap analysis. So that's when I think people like yourself come into play as a mentor, because people can sit there and go, I think I'm fine at that. You need someone to turn around and go, no, you're not. Step away from that. That's
really
not way to live in business. But you can't say that to yourself sometimes. You might think, I meet so many founders who, I was speaking to a guy earlier and he's like, I start at 8, I finish at 4:30, I do tea for the kids, and then I log back in again and I'm busy doing more. It's like, there is no gold star for having a breakdown. Stop it.
Yes.
And he wasn't. I said to him, how many steps have you done? And he's like, over the last 2 days I've done about 400 or so. So you're not looking after yourself at all. You're just, this is not the way to run a business. I said, you should work smart, work focused, but you've got to recharge your batteries.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure.
And you've got to do your 10,000 steps every day.
Just get out.
Very important.
Even if it is raining.
Yeah.
We've been bedraggled today, haven't we? The weather's been delightful, but we've gone out and done.
I'm very projected. I'm sorry, people. I got very wet this morning, but hey.
But there's no gold star as a founder for doing stupid hours.
There's no gold star for anyone having a breakdown. I think that's the thing. I would want everyone to grow slower, but grow healthy. Yes. That's the thing. Stop thinking you've got to do this overnight success thing. It's rubbish.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
It's marketing spin.
Yeah, it's rubbish. Just take your time. And as you say, go to someone who will help you work out what the bits you're not good at, and then outsource those bits. People are always outsourcing their branding to us because Chris is a genius at all of that kind of stuff, absolute genius. But also audience. Another interesting conversation I've had frequently is that whole thing about, well, I'm a painter, but I also make sculpture and I do cakes on the side. And you're like, that's great, that's absolutely fantastic if you don't want to actually make it into a business in this lifetime. But if you want to make this into a business in this lifetime, you've got to pick a lane. Yeah. So do you want to be the baker? Do you want to be the clay maker? Or do you want to be the painter? Just pick a lane. And then it'll still take you a little while, but you tunnel vision and you'll get there. But if you try and do all three, you're dissipating your energy across all three. You have to have different resources. You have to outsource different things, different audiences, different dynamic. So it's going to take you much, much longer. You might not make it in this lifetime. You might have to wait till the next one.
You spread very thin. I would say go pick the pottery and have cakes as a side hustle, as a thing you do that you just love. Yeah. Don't pretend it's part of the business, kind of.
Exactly. Do the cakes as your relaxation.
Yeah. Totally. So the guy I was speaking to today, I said to him in the evenings, I want you to read. I want you to feed your brain. Because you're just running your battery down every single day. And if you keep running your battery down, you will eventually run out of energy. Totally. As you say, breakdown being the worst case scenario. So I said to him, if you feel you should be doing something in the evening, that's when I'd make the cakes. Yeah. I'd do a thing that uses a different part of my brain, makes the house smell nice,
But don't make the
But it's
cakes
not
and
a
think you've
business.
got to go and sell them. Just eat them.
No, don't give everything that relationship, is it?
Yeah, it's the transaction. The funny thing with people who get into this, you know, growing a business, is they think everything is a transaction, and it's not.
No. And well, again, it also that builds that we're talking about trust and authenticity and relationships. It isn't about sales, it's about networks, it's about your whole community. It's a very small world. If do as
Mm,
you would be done by, that whole kind of karma thing,
mm,
let's all treat people well. It's not always what people can do for you, it's who they might know and what you might be able to do for them. And if
mm.
you go out with that kind of energy, you get it back.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know this sounds like I'm hippie, doesn't it? But it really
No,
does work.
sounds like
It's
you're a
just
real human being.
but
It
and
really
treat other people like
does.
real human beings. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we are real. We can
that's what
break.
we all warmed to.
Yeah,
That's why we got on so well, is we just put the
yeah,
world to rights, shared
yeah,
experiences, and we're just honest. This is it. Be honest. Hey, I haven't got a clue how to do this. Can you help me? Or
yeah,
I've met this wonderful person who can do social. Does anyone else need her help? Because she's a
yeah,
resource that she's got some additional time. Come on, people. So just put it out
yeah.
there and you will get it back. So when you have a challenge or a problem, you can ask the universe and they'll, ask your community and it will bring it back to you.
We had this week so we have the Hungry Artists Facebook group, and I'm always saying to the guys, it's there as a resource for you. It's nothing
Mm,
more than a resource for you. If you've got a question, ask it. And one of our community asked a question, and honestly, the dialogue that came back, and it was so good, and they were so supportive to her, and she found her answer, and it was great. I mean, over a few days, people were like adding a few more things in, and I'm like, that's what it's there for. Don't be
nice.
shy. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ask. We've all been there. We're all very honest, and it's a safe place to ask those questions. And it's also safe to say, I need help with this, and I'm not sure how I'm going to pay for it. Can someone tell me that how they did it? And I'm very much,
Totally.
I looked at what I earn, as I say, and then I looked at what I needed to earn to get what I needed. And then I ran the numbers of, okay, so what do I need to change, or what do I need to do to get there? So, like you said, back myself, okay, I can do this, and which bits I don't like. And then I'm very honest whenever I speak to people. So I'll be like, well, I could start you on 2 days a week, but I might
Yeah.
hopefully be able to move you up to 4 if this all goes well. Are you up for that? And normally they're like, yeah, hell yeah. So
Because
if
you're
you're
being honest.
very honest
Go
about
on.
it,
I used to run a training company and I would get my instructors, they were all freelancers, and I'd say, right now we've got 3 delegates. So I can pay you X amount. We get 8 delegates, I can give you more. So I would share the profit and loss
yeah,
with them. It was a case of, we're in this together. I need you. You're brilliant, but I don't have any money in here.
yeah,
And they would work with me because they knew if they did get up to 10 delegates, they'd get a lovely big paycheck. If it was still stuck with the 3, they'd still deliver it. It'd be less money, but they knew that because they'd done that favor for me, I'd make sure they got a nice course for 12 on it, for example. It kind of just, as
exactly,
long as they knew it was a fair relationship, it would always
exactly.
work. I was going to go back to when you're doing your first hire. Sometimes if you're just a sole founder, doing that interview process by yourself is
Oh,
also very
yeah.
hard. You need another perspective because interviews are weird dates, aren't they? They're very
Oh,
strange. So I'd probably recommend getting a friend or your mentor, someone to come with, to be there on the interview, but then making sure you do get references. Because the other thing is we don't always ask for is references to go and find out what this person's really like.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
could even trial them on a project. If you have a freelancer, you could just trial them on a single project before you commit to them being on any sort of other longer contract with you.
anyone listening to this is going to laugh now, because that's what I always do. I always go,
Yeah.
we'll just
But
put you on a project.
try
Try
before you
before you
buy
buy.
because otherwise, what did we call it? We called it offboarding earlier, didn't we? As in just
Offboarding.
chucking
Yeah,
it.
how do you offboard?
Because sacking someone's horrible. And
Yeah,
sometimes if you try a project together, you're more easily, because a key thing about a good hire is someone who speaks the same language as you, isn't it? Someone who they just understand what you mean. And we've all had relationships in different work environments where it feels like you're having a slightly cross purposes conversation, or you just don't quite on the same wavelength. You won't know
yeah,
that about a person until you're actually on a project with them. In an interview, it's half an hour, an hour. You're not really going to get their energy. Whereas on a
Yeah.
project, you will, have they got a can-do attitude? Have they got a that's not in my description attitude? Are they box shifters or
Mm.
plate spinners? You won't get any of that from an interview, apart from what they tell you, which is only their perception or what they think you want to hear.
Yeah, I sit in on a lot of interviews with my clients. So when they're
Mm,
trying to hire someone, I sit in on a lot of interviews. And because I'm NLP trained, I use that NLP really within so we ask certain questions. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you, I'll be honest, it's gut. It's the
yeah.
gut instinct of responding to the person's personality. But even
Mm,
then, you are thinking, I think out of these, five, that one. But that's only out of a
yeah.
5. Out of 5, if I've got to choose one, sometimes you've got 5 and you go, "I don't want any of these. These aren't gonna work." And it's not because they're bad people or anything, it's just they're not right for the role that you're looking for, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
Just I think about this with projects, so I've been offered a project, and I was saying today, just because we could do it, should we do it?
Mm,
Just because we can, doesn't mean we have to. And
no.
that comes into that strategic thinking of us. Does it fit in with our ethos? Because we're all about serving the artists and helping them get experiences and giving them things that they should have, but they don't actually have access to right now. So should we do it? And that's the same with hiring. It's just because you've got 5 people in front of you doesn't mean you have to pick one.
And
That's
if
a
you don't
really
hire
difficult
any of
thing.
them, yeah, well, exactly. Well, you feel disappointed, but also another thing, if
Mm,
you don't hire any of the 5, give them a good negative ending, because
mm,
you never know when they might be useful in the future. Because
yeah,
they might not be right for this project, but you might want to
yeah,
keep if there was nothing wrong with them, but they
yeah,
just weren't right for this, keep them warm and just say, this isn't quite the right fit, but I think you're great. I'll keep in touch, and then do keep in touch.
yeah. What
Because
we try
again,
and do
yeah,
is like find out during the interview process if there's something they need. So that's always a good one. So then if you don't want them, you
mm,
can say, however, in the process, you said you needed this. And I would think, maybe have a look at that or that. So you can give them some, like someone said in an interview, they wanted to do a particular project. And so I was like, oh, well, actually, go and
mm,
speak to that person. So sorry, you're not right for this, but actually, hopefully, I've solved your problem with that. So you feel
which
that
is nice.
their time wasn't wasted. So that's a really
Yes.
good one in an interview process is to say, to find out a little bit about them so that there's enough there that you can, if you're going to say no, you can give them a little bit of something positive. So their time was worth it. Their time was useful. And
Do you
very
help
much,
people script their interviews as well? Because that's the other thing, is an interview needs a structure.
I always have questions. So
Mm,
I'll come up with like 4 or 5 questions that we're going to ask and then listen. You do much more listening than you do
yeah.
speaking in interviews. So we do that. And then, oh, yes, you see, Ted agrees. Ted
He's
agrees.
listening.
Yeah, he's listening. And so, yeah, we always have 4 or 5 questions, specific questions, and not the obvious questions like, if you were in a room of 15 people and one of them was blue, I don't know, the crazy questions that they used to ask at interviews when I
It
was
was very
interviewed.
trendy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One person had a boot on and another person that was wearing a hat. Like, what? Is this
I
an
remember
interview
having "sell
or
me a
is it a play?
pencil" in one of my first interviews,
Oh,
was "sell
yeah.
me a pencil." It's like, "Oh, for goodness sake."
Yeah, I know. Am I in a play? Is this charades? What are we doing here? I know. I'm like, no, I'm not up for those kind of questions. But I do.
Mm,
I do a lot of NLP questioning,
yeah.
NLP based questioning, and then just listen. And yeah, I have a kind of standard set of like 4 or 5 questions that I ask. And as I say, I always try and find out a little bit more about them so that there's something
Mm,
we can give back at the end, whether we hire them or we don't hire them. We can also provide a bit of added value to them as well, which I really like to do. That's kind of my mentor thing, isn't it? It's like I
yeah.
like to give a bit of added value. And then I do think do you often do the 3 month trial or the 1 week trial or the whatever?
I think if it's a freelancer, I think you can definitely do that. I think it's quite
Mm,
difficult with someone who's looking for a full-time job.
mm,
I have known there's a film studio actually in Bristol that was trying to do that. And I don't think that's quite fair to people who do need that
mm,
security of a full-time income. But I've
mm,
done that before, where I've gone and worked for a week just to get a feel for them as much as them for me.
mm,
I quite enjoyed that.
mm,
I was going to bring it up, talking about the interview process. The funniest thing about interviewing students is, of course, they've got nothing to talk about.
No.
You can't say tell so you are going on gut instinct and tell me about your history. And so
Mm,
with a student, I was basing a lot of my judgment on the way that they talked about their childhood, their studying, because
mm,
they can't tell me. They might work in Tesco's, but, they can't tell me why this job is a great fit for them. They can
no.
just tell me about themselves, and then from that, I could just work out, could I work with you? That's literally what I had with
Yeah,
the students. Could I work with you? And has what you've studied potentially got a value? But then again, I learned that things like history and geography and all these other every topic had a use that I found,
yeah,
even if but they didn't know it. I remember
yeah,
interviewing a psychology's master, and she's like, "I don't have a clue how my degree will be useful." It's like, "I've got a master's in psychology." It's like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fine,"
yeah,
because they haven't been given the tools. So you've just got to go, "Are you open-minded enough for me to allow me to get into your brain and make the most of your potential?"
yeah, yeah,
That's all you could do with
absolutely.
a student. Yeah.
Yeah, and also see whether there's any common ground. So,
Mm.
from your, the hobbies that you have and everything, is there some common ground? Dogs and cats are always like we were talking about rabbits. You want to build a rapport, don't you, in that
Yeah.
interview? So I do try and build a rapport at the beginning to see
Mm.
whether I can build a rapport with that person. Because if you can't build a rapport with them in the interview, you're going to struggle if they're working for you. And you need to be working in your business. You need to have people that you can get on with. They mustn't all be the same as you, because that's not going to add any value
No.
to your business. You need people within all the different like spectrums of personality.
Mm.
I've got a cat that's just leapt on a wardrobe, for instance. She brings an added dynamic to the situation. But you do need to pick people who aren't like you, but you do
Mm.
need to be able to build a rapport with them, because they're bringing a different perspective, and that's some of the value that people bring to the business. Not only skills,
Yeah.
but they have a different world view. And that's what I like. I do like to bring in people into my business who think differently to me. Because otherwise, we're not going to do anything exciting, are we? If it's just all
But
me.
that takes bravery because to have someone who's going to challenge you, to have somebody who
Mm,
knows more than you do about a topic can
mm,
make quite a lot of founders feel quite insecure. Again, back to that, I need to do everything. You've just got to admit, as we said earlier, I don't know. I don't know about these things. I'm going to empower you to help me with it. I'm
mm,
going to I'm going to be comfortable with you saying you're talking absolute rubbish. This is how this works. You got to get
mm,
Canva. Um,
mm.
but that's quite scary when it's your business. A lot of people can feel very protective.
Yeah, we do get very fixed in our mindset, don't we?
Mm,
And I can see that I have grown able to do this now. I've grown braver through some very brutal experiences, I have to be honest, where I've had to learn a lot about myself. And and I've learned that I can let go and I can give these things to other people who are much better at it than me. And that's great, because that frees me up to do the thing that I'm brilliant at, which is, I'm very much a creative. I will come up with the idea, and then I'll be able to work out how it can make money so that it can have longevity. Because the worst thing
mm,
in our industry is when people pop up, they do one thing and then they disappear. They
mm,
disappear. And everyone's disappointed because they had a lovely time and they want to do it again. But that person hasn't thought it through properly, and they haven't worked out how it's going to make money so they can do it again, and they just disappear. I don't do that. I make sure that we've run all the numbers and and it's got legs before we even introduce it into the industry, so that we can be there for 10 years, 20 years, and people aren't going to be disappointed.
but as you said earlier, that's quite scary. It's a whole different way. It's a different mindset. It's a
Mm.
different way of thinking. It maybe sounds less romantic, but
Yes. It is less romantic.
but it
It is.
but it's far more logical.
Yeah.
And it means you can do more of what you love. You're helping yourself do more of what you love by being quite honest about the fact that this is a business.
Yeah.
As you say,
And I
that
am.
yeah.
Yeah, I am, and I try and make sure the artists understand. I'm happy to support an artist where it's a hobby. I'm
Mm,
happy to support an artist where they want to work within the public sector.
mm,
But I am best, and my skills are best versed towards someone who wants to turn it into a business, for sure,
mm.
definitely, because I've had all that experience of doing it myself, and I've also fallen flat on my face doing it, and hurt and got bruises,
But that's why it's
wounds.
important to work with you because and to have that support because we will never stop everybody running into the brick walls.
No.
But but we can at least give them we can pick them up when they've smacked into it, and give them all the tools. And as you say, all of your community all know that wall. They've all negotiated it in different ways, and if we can all
Yeah,
help each other, I think there is always the thing of we all learn through making the mistakes,
yeah, absolutely. You
and that
can't
is
learn if
that's
you do it
human.
right, can you?
No, no, we
Don't
can
learn
sit here and
anything.
say don't do this, but they still will.
Yeah,
But at least when they have the bad hire, when they have to go through removing people from the business, or reputational damage is the worst you can get with brand, isn't
yeah,
it?
reputational risk. Whew.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's nasty.
that shouldn't stop you doing.
No, you
You
have
just
to
you
get
just
up,
do well.
brush yourself down, and have another go. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing, going back to the contracts.
Mm.
I had a situation where, I didn't have a contract. I just did it on trust. It was at a period of time when I just didn't do it. There's no other reason. I just didn't.
It'll be
This
fine, don't worry. At the time, I'm sure you thought, "Oh, they're great. It'll be absolutely fine."
I trust them. It'll be fine. And it wasn't a case of this person breaking my trust. They just didn't think it through, and I
Mm.
didn't have the NDA, so I couldn't even go. You signed the NDA. You can't do that. And I felt really bad because that was my responsibility to show, that was my responsibility to say that up front. You mustn't do this, because that's going to put you out of a job if you do it. And it put the person out of a job because I hadn't made that point, and then
You've gotta lay down the ground rules. You've gotta lay down
had
the
to let them go.
expectations. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I felt bad.
you gotta cover your brand. You've gotta cover your
Mm,
reputation. But also, as
mm,
you say at the beginning, even if it's freelance, even if it's 0 hours contract, this is still a powerful role they have in your organization, which could just be you and then them.
yeah.
And it's also you're putting a foundation for growth. You don't wanna set off on the wrong foot.
Mm, Respect, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's mutual respect. If you have an agreement between you, it's not something to. It's not like one of those. What do they sign? They sign the prenups. It's not a prenup. It's not a prenup saying if we break up, this is what's going to happen. It is a thing about mutually respecting each other, and that's why we have always have terms and conditions
Mm,
on our website so that everyone knows where they stand. And if it's pointed out to us something that someone's got uncomfortable with, we'll always have a conversation
mm.
about it, because that's who we are. But it's just making the basis for the ground, for how you work together, and being respectful.
It's
Yeah,
just good to have
being
ground rules, and then
yeah,
because people can make assumptions.
yeah,
I assume that would be
mm,
fine. As you say, it may not be malicious. It's like, "Well, I thought that
yeah,
would be okay."
yeah,
And in their mind, if they didn't know better, and you say it's our role as the founder
mm,
to help them know what's okay and what's not okay. So talk about
mm,
social media, what language they should be using, what hashtags, who they should follow, what
mm,
what is acceptable for the brand and what isn't. Because they
yeah,
might think is well, I think that's absolutely fine to say that or use that language, but
mm,
for your brand, that's completely
yeah. It's a
not where we
no-no.
want. Exactly.
Yeah,
You mustn't, if you leave everything up to assumptions, you're just asking for trouble with the branding, with the contracts. So having it locked down helps with scaling, it helps with clarity, and it will help with your growth as you move forward because everyone's on the same message. So you get your
mm.
copywriter and you get your I like the noise.
Pedigrees.
Yeah, but it's again, it's laying down that foundation properly. You can't build the house without it
Yeah, and
because
then managing your staff. I think
mm,
that for a final kind of run out, I think managing your staff is, that kind of like you train them and then you set the management tools in place. What kind of management tools do you generally suggest?
I I think a lot of people's teams I imagine are going to be remote. So if you've
Mm,
got people based everywhere, I love tools like Slack. I like
mm,
tools where you can just have a chat with people. Obviously, there's Teams. There's lots of other tools where you can just encourage communication. So if you have a group of freelancers, they can all be on that platform talking to each other, but
mm,
not on email.
mm,
I really some of the things that I think we should keep from the joys of lockdown are the water cooler moments where everyone has like an open Zoom session where you can pop in and
mm,
have a chat. It's
mm,
making sure that you're keeping them all engaged and up to speed with what you're doing and why you're doing it, whilst
mm,
also empowering them to get on with what they need to be doing. So it's a
mm,
fine balance for freelancers because you don't want them sat in endless meetings talking about what they should be
No.
doing, because that's
That's
costing you money.
money.
So that's why I quite like tools like Slack or Trello,
Mm,
or project management tools.
mm.
It's little tools where you can feed them snippets and keep them engaged and feel, because the worst thing as a freelancer is to feel as though you're kind of a mushroom. You're in a cupboard with your one job. You're in the dark. You need to see the vision. That came from a friend of mine who works in
I
PR.
love that, you're a mushroom.
She's like, I feel like a mushroom in the dark, because you need to know what's happening. What shows are we
Yeah,
doing? So you need to
yeah,
find a tool where you can put all of those in, whether it's Slack or Trello, just feed it through to the team so they all have clarity of what's going on without it taking lots of your time or their time.
yeah,
And if you
yeah.
are, personal management styles are a really interesting one as well, though, because it can feel quite all or nothing if you're busy.
Mm.
And most people do want love. They want
Yeah,
to feel a part of your team.
yeah,
Again, my graduates, we used to have pink sofa moments. That was the color of the sofa in the hallway. And I would make sure I had at least a 10-minute pink sofa moment. These were full-time people. Just
mm,
to make, how are you doing? What are you up to? What do you need from me? What
mm,
are you struggling with?
mm.
And the weeks I didn't do that, they suffered.
Yeah,
So again, all these people are individuals. What management style do they want from us? Which sounds like hard work, which is quite a lot of founders, as their teams grow, take on someone to manage the team so they can just
yeah,
be creative. And beyond, that's also a really key point, is if you hate managing people, you maybe need to hire, one of your first hires maybe should be someone who to do that, to
yeah.
help with your business growth. So it could be someone who's sales and marketing or operations,
Mm,
whatever you call them, who takes
mm.
all of that to do all the bits to manage and source all the things you shouldn't be doing, and then hope.
What I will
Yeah.
say in here, what I like and what I think has been incredibly beneficial for me is I know how to do all these things. So it's not that I want to or don't want to. I
Mm,
know how to do social media. I know how to do marketing. I know how to run my accounts. I think it's really important to know how to do them,
mm.
but then to recognize and then hire someone to do those things that you're not the best at or you don't want to do. It doesn't matter if you're really good at it. Like, yes, I'm very good at money, but actually I do now outsource. I do have Zero to do my accounts and I have an accountant to do my accounts, even though I could do it myself
You're
because it's
quite
not a good.
unusual, though, being able to do all of these things. A lot of founders I meet can't do all of that,
Mm.
or they do it
Do
really
they not
badly.
even know how to do it?
I know a lot of founders who hate social media to a passion that they really don't want to know, kind of trying to force them through the style of doing the photography or engaging on
Mm.
platforms. I think you're right. I think you should have enough awareness to be able to outsource well.
Yeah, because
Otherwise,
that's what I think. I
you're
think you need
outsourcing
to
blind,
know.
aren't you?
Yeah, I think you need to. I always think about it. It's like the boy who starts training in the post room, and you go through the post room, and then you find the job through that process that you're good at and you really like. But he still knows what goes on in the post room. So you can be respectful to that person and
Mm,
kind when they're doing that job for you.
yeah.
So I'm very much an advocate for you don't have to be doing it brilliantly. You just need to know how it. You have to have some level of awareness of how each of those things work.
You should have an awareness of what good looks like.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
otherwise, if you outsourced it, how do you know if it's working or not? And
Exactly.
I think that's when people outsource sales. That's when it goes horribly wrong, because they'll get promised by a salesperson, obviously, the moon and the stars, and then they don't deliver because someone's going, well, I hate sales, so they don't do it. So again, the gentleman I was speaking to today, he's finding sales incredibly uncomfortable, but he's got to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm coaching him on go networking, volunteer at this event, get seen. He's, oh, I don't, networking is visibility, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he's mortified, but he's going to have to do it. He can't afford to hire anyone to do that for him right now. And
Yeah.
it's his business. He's a founder. He's got a part-time person doing some coding for him. He's got to get out there and represent the brand, and that he absolutely hates that idea, but he's got no choice right now.
No, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. But I do
Yeah.
think it's important to know what good looks like, as I
Yes.
say, so that when someone's doing it for you, you know what bad looks like as well.
Well, you've got to put success measurements on these people, whether it's
Yeah.
social media, bookkeeping, sales,
Yes.
whatever. You've got to have some sort of
Yeah. KPI.
review. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
So KPIs, key performance indicators, they're numbers, people,
Yeah.
but they can also be other things. It's normally, I want to see this level of engagement on my Instagram, or I want you to sell 2 of these items per month, or I need to see this number of people going into my mailing list, or whatever it is, you have to put a number on it
Mm.
so that you can see whether that is actually working. But yeah, the managing of these people, I think I use Trello.
Mm.
I absolutely agree that we need to retain some of what happened during lockdown with, I mean, I do Q&As, regular Q&As with everyone in the Pure network, and they're always there. They can come, and we do real life member days. And
Nice.
I think that's really important. We go nice places and go and have dinner and chat to each other. I don't think you can replace that.
No, no, the energy of an in-person
Mm,
interaction is so different. I think
mm,
this has served its purpose, so the
mm,
Zooms and the Google, and
mm.
we've started different conversations, which is brilliant. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm hosting an in-person roundtable Friday morning. I can't wait. It's going to be exhausting. I do find that tiring now, seeing
yeah,
real
I
people.
do.
But
Yeah.
I think that's where the magic happens. That's where we build deeper relationships.
I absolutely agree. I like to do, within reason,
Mm,
a good number of like in-person things, just because I think it just brings another level into the relationship. And with my team, we try and meet, like, so with my key team, I'm like
mm,
meeting them in person once a week, and then now that we can, and then with the wider team, I try and meet them at least once a month.
mm.
Again, it's all within reason of what, we've had someone with COVID and, other things going on, but we're trying to do that, but keep this as well, keep
Yeah.
the best of this. So this is recorded and people can go back and, consume it in their own time. So yeah, I think platforms like Trello are brilliant for that.
It's very visual too. I like visual. I like easy to use. I don't
Mm.
want complexity. I want it to be very intuitive.
I love Trello because you can move things up and down and you can do checklists and say, oh, I've done
You
50% of
can
what I
color
needed to
code
do.
it and you can do
Exactly.
but you find the tool that works for you. These are free
Yeah, they're
at the
free
base level.
tools.
Find which one works for you. Find and then it's how you set it up and how you use it. So again, you've got to devise how you're going to use it. Is it going to be per project? Is it going to be conversations? Because a
Mm,
tool's only as good as the user management of it.
yeah, yeah. And that's kind of like comes into the training, doesn't it?
Mm,
Um I don't think I've kind of trained my team. I've kind of got people who are already know what they're doing, but I've trained them in the pure way.
yeah.
And that's been done by gently doing one project after another, and then they get the vibe and then they
Mm,
know how it all works. And then the Trello list is kind of done in checklist order so they know what's most important to me.
yeah.
They will tell you though, I do love a spreadsheet.
Oh.
I love a color coordinated spreadsheet because I was a project manager, and they hate them. They literally hate them. So I don't know what I'm going to have to work out. I mean, I convert them onto Trello, so
Mm.
they do get that. But I am going to have to work on my on my Excel spreadsheet thing.
But I like tools like Miro, the online whiteboards that everyone can collaborate on.
Mm,
There's some great tools, and again, they've all come leaps and bounds the last 2 years because they've suddenly had massive
mm,
growth in audiences. So the
mm,
tools are out there to be taken on. But I'm being
mm.
more selective about which events I go to in person now. I want that quality over quantity.
Yes.
But I do find online a lot of the team meetings I'd have online will be quite transactional. You don't get
Yes.
those water cooler grabbing a cup of tea moments where you
Mm.
chat about how their weekend was and
Yeah.
so what happened with your dog or whatever it may be, you
Yeah.
don't get as much of those are the moments that create longer relationships, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you're
Mm,
absolutely right that I think we now need to get into the bit where these are used to become efficient
mm,
and to share what we need to share, but then we do go back to the real life, which is the building the real strong deep relationships, but
yeah.
being selective. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm very selective. I've been on a couple over the last few weeks in London. Oh,
You've been to the smoke.
I went to London, scary times. And I went to a CPD. So as you know,
Mm,
all of our courses and programs are CPD accredited, which is something again very important to me.
yep.
And so I went to a CPD meeting, and there was quite a lot of people in the room. And but I met some incredibly interesting people, and I never would have connected with them
Mm,
on a Zoom meeting. So that was a good use of my time.
yeah.
And I felt it was a good use of my time, and I've made some really good connections there that I hope will develop into something that will be good for all of our community. So I kind of feel like I'm investing for everyone when I go to those kind of things.
But you're gonna cherry pick, as you say, you're not gonna go to
Yeah.
everything.
Mm,
I think the days are gone of, the breakfast meeting and then lots of meetings during the day and then the evening event. I think, again, we're all a little bit more aware of our own
yeah.
time and the
Yeah.
value of time.
Yeah.
I
I'll
don't think we're
do those
yeah.
online ones when they're abroad.
Mm.
So, which is great. That's a great thing, isn't it? We
Yes,
can
absolutely.
we can zoom into LA and see what they're up to.
It'd be quite nice to be in LA though, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I am thinking, wouldn't it be nice to be in LA? But
Right now, yeah, the weather would be better,
sadly,
wouldn't it?
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
sadly, we would. Have they haven't got this storm, have they?
But isn't that wonderful now? I think that'll the
Yeah.
fact that we suddenly have the globe open, you know what I'm
Mm,
like, I'm gonna take all the positives I can from
yeah.
lockdown. If we keep some of those good bits, all the better.
Yeah, the globe being open means that actually you can also access staff remotely to
Mm,
help you with your business that are in other parts of the world. So, say you are an artist and you wanted to break into Australia,
yeah,
take a VA in Australia.
yeah,
Don't take a VA here; they're not going to help you. But if you want to get your artwork shown in Australia, then take a VA or get your artwork up on a platform in Australia, or the same in America, or in the Middle East, wherever it is that you want to go.
yeah,
That's where you should be seeking out the staff in a particular thing, because they'll have the network.
mm,
So you'll be able to get into their network. And that's definitely something that I think has been a brilliant thing when you're looking to outsource not only the tech platforms that now have come on so much, but
mm.
the ability to be able to pick up a VA in another country, a virtual assistant, sorry. Don't use jargon, Lesley. A virtual assistant, which is an absolute common thing now. Lots of
Yep,
people have virtual assistants in another country who's got another network and another cultural perspective,
yep, absolutely.
and
Of
students in another with another cultural perspective you could
Yep,
also find. So don't just go to your local university. Think about what it is, strategically where you're trying to get, and then think, well, actually, what about a university out there? I'm sure they do interns as well,
oh, they
and
all do, and there's a company called ESPA, ESPA, who are based actually in Bath here, and they bring international students to the UK. And I think as a company, you have to pay a very small amount of money towards their board. I think it's an
mm,
incredibly good deal for, but again, you could get a German student over. It's
yeah,
amazing, and those have all remained even after Brexit. That's still an option there. You might get an American student over. It could be
mm,
amazing. And you can do them remotely too. But if you fancy having someone in the office, as you say,
yeah.
why not? You
Why
might.
not?
I mean, translating websites. If you want to go into a new, yeah, so many opportunities.
Yeah, so that's when you're outsourcing. Don't just think within that obvious field. You need to
Mm,
kind of like look outside the edges, don't you? And think,
mm.
actually, strategically in 5 years' time, that when I've analyzed my audience for my work, actually, it's not in the UK at all. I've had this with clients before where they've gone, well, I've been doing these art fairs in London and I've never sold a thing. And I'm like, well, have we done an audience analysis to see who actually buys your artwork? Oh, they
Or
don't.
who visits the
They-
website, your Google
yeah,
Analytics, every platform has country analytics. You've got to use the data. Again,
yeah.
that doesn't feel desperately romantic and creative, but actually good data
Oh, I
is
love
gonna
data. Don't get me
yeah.
on data.
That's a whole nother webinar.
That's a whole nother discussion, because I'm a data geek. But that's it. You work out what your person looks like, feels like, talks like, etc. And suddenly you realize you're trying to sell your work in this location and they're actually over there.
You've got to build customer personas.
Yeah.
Another topic on it for another day, but
Mm,
you might make assumptions when you start, and then as soon as
mm,
you start gathering data, you might discover you thought they were this, but actually they're that. So then you pivot.
yeah,
Because it
exactly.
doesn't matter if, what the demographic is, if someone loves what you're doing.
It's irrelevant. It's just
Yeah.
finding there's an audience for everybody.
Find
It's
your
just
tribe. Yeah.
you just got to find them, haven't you? Yeah, that's another whole webinar
Seth
on.
Godin, whole webinar. We're gonna do that another do that
Yeah, we'll
another
do
time.
that another one, because I think we've reached the end of our day today.
How
Let
did we just speak for an hour and 10 minutes there?
I
What did
have
we
absolutely no idea. But hopefully people have found that valuable when they're thinking about outsourcing or starting to grow their business and actually trying to, because you're not going to grow if you just hold it all to yourself.
You've got to give yourself headspace as well. There's another
Yeah,
thing about growing your business. It's not about growing, may not be producing more. It might be headspace. It might
yeah.
be taking that time out to think about the strategy and work on the business, not in the business, all that stuff, which I know you talk about all
Mm,
the time.
mm.
You can't do if you're working 12-hour days trying to do everything badly.
No, you have to reduce the mental load,
Yeah.
because
Because
if
how
you
can you be
don't,
creative if you're overwhelmed?
you can't.
As you
You
said right at the
can't.
beginning, let's not even get too overwhelmed. Let's wind it back and let's set off on the right track here.
Yeah, I don't like. I hate having been as someone who's done that burnout drop. It's so bad for you, and you
Yeah.
don't actually grow anything that's worth having. So no, avoid overwhelm. Understand what your stretch looks like you said at the beginning,
Mm.
and then just start working with people to understand where your audience is and what you need to do to grow that business and who it is that you need to help you.
Slow
And
and
they
steady builds a long, robust business.
slow and
Well,
steady wins the race.
you know overnight successes come with 20 years of experience behind them. You know, that's the whole
Exactly.
point, isn't it? But yeah, if you just go for achievable and comfortable,
Yeah,
there's an obsession with going stretch, isn't there? And out of
yeah,
your comfort zone.
yeah.
Forget all that cliche rubbish.
Yeah, it's rubbish. 20 years and one night is
Yeah.
overnight success, really. I've worked it out, actually, in my case, 30 years and one night is
But
overnight
and
success.
what success looks like is personal, as we've talked about before. What success,
Exactly.
what growth looks like is up to every individual to decide for themselves.
Mm, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
How you, what I see now is my success is different to what I thought it was going to be as well.
It will evolve because we
Yeah,
change, don't we? We're not the
yeah,
same person we were 20, 30 years ago. We evolve and we should just be honest with ourselves about what we really want from life, whether that's the 4-day week people, that's the
yeah,
big thing right now is let's work 4-day weeks or having doing your 10,000 steps a day. What's
yeah.
important to you?
I've got to do those 10,000 steps, Lucy, because someone has made me sign up for a
I'm not there.
26-mile hike from Brighton to Eastbourne. They've got me signed up for.
Ooh,
I
when?
know, June.
Have we got to sponsor you?
Yes, you've got to
Okay.
all sponsor me, please. It's for Macmillan. It's on my. I will share it again on the Hungry Artist and on the Facebook page. But yeah, someone. I was like, it's a really good cause. And then my friend made me go out for a training day yesterday. Made me walk up a hill. Honestly, thought I was going to die. I got to
It's
the
all,
top of the hill. I
just walk along
thought I was going to die.
just walk along the seacoast. Don't go up any hills. Don't think it
She
works
said,
like that.
she said, right, I'm going to make you walk up that hill again in about 4 weeks. So we can gauge how fit you're getting. I was like, I'm going
You
to
got a brutal
die.
trainer there.
I have got a brutal trainer, is what I'm saying. But that's it. For me, it's really important. My
Mm.
physical health. Buy a push bike. Yeah. Oh, I don't think so. I would never have got that push bike up the hill. I mean, really, I just got to the top and I was like, we're going to have to stop here for a minute because actually I think I'm going to die. It was a horrible moment, but I
You
will
have
get
4
there.
months, it'll be
I've
fine.
got 4 months. I do like to set myself challenges like that, but that's it. That's me. I know my personality, and I know that I like to push myself. But I
Mm.
also know that doing things that are for my physical and mental electric bike, that's me.
I think
Sandra, I'm
that's
an
cheating.
electric bike. I'm so with you, Sandra. She is my girl. See, and then I need to get. I was thinking a driver actually.
A
You know when,
chauffeur.
yeah, when you're at school and I don't know whether you did this, but they would always send us on cross country
Oh,
when the teachers wanted a rest. And they sent us on like a 10-mile cross country. Unfortunately, on our cross country, you only had to like go up the road and then there was a bus stop. And we'd all hang about and then get on the bus and it bring us all the way back round. And we're like,
it's
run
a
up the
perfect weather
road.
for cross country today. This is what they used to send us out in when I used to do cross country. Wet and you end up coast in
Yeah.
mud. Yeah,
Yeah. And
lovely.
I hope none of my teachers are watching because they now know that we all got on the bus. It's
I
terrible, isn't
remember
it?
doing a lot of walking when we did cross country. What was the point of
It was just through fields. It was dreadful. And I think the
Yeah,
electric bike is the answer, or a chauffeur. But I will do it. But that's the thing is I know myself and I know that keeping my physical health is really important for my
mm,
mental
yeah,
well-being and all of these things. And also, actually, do you know what? My team are really important to me for my mental well-being as well. I
mm,
love having my team around me and sharing all our highs and lows and how everything works. And we're having a members lunch in about a month's time, and that's really important because we'll all celebrate how well we all did during lockdown and how we all just kept it all together. So
You
yeah.
do need to do that. You need to celebrate. You need to be on the journey together because it's very lonely doing it by yourself. You're you're
Rewards.
you're far more likely to fail if you try and do it alone.
Yeah.
It's proven. So build your network.
Yeah, loneliness is
Mm,
a killer.
mm.
It's scientifically proven that loneliness kills. So you need lots of people around you.
And pets. We've got
And
people.
here he is. Here's Teddy. Are you come to say goodbye, Ted? I'm not gonna. I might attempt to show you where the cat is.
Go
I'm
for
just
it.
terrified that the webcam might disconnect itself, which it's done before. But
Oh gosh.
look.
Hello.
Oh no,
That's
it didn't disconnect itself. Thank goodness. It has.
That is the best view of the room, definitely.
She decided that she was going up, and that's my storage cupboard. She decided she was going up there. She's guarding again, you see.
Mm.
Oh, thank you so much, Lucy. As ever, absolutely brilliant.
I
Mine of
love talking to
information.
you. Where did that go? It's fantastic.
I love
Thank
it
you.
as well. I love it as well. I think next time we'll do customer personas.
I think we should do that.
I'm going to write that down on my list. Customer personas and relationships. Personas and relationships, because I think that's a real big one, isn't it? Building
is.
relationships with people. So yeah, Lucy and I'll have a chat about that afterwards. I'll send you an email.
Cool.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to keep an eye on the YouTube channel and make sure that you subscribe so that you'll be notified when we post up a new one of these recordings. And yeah, try and watch one a week. That's what we recommend, so that you're keeping up to date with all the inspiration and everything. You may not need it now, but when you've heard it, it will remind you when you do come to that point in your career and you do need it.
Wise words.
Good night, everyone. I'm going to
Good
go in
night.
and finish my dinner. I'm halfway through. Thanks, Lucy. And take care. Take care,
Good night.
everyone. Have a good rest of the week. All right. Take care. Bye.